Welcome back to the Unstuck movement. This platform is to help you break those chains that are holding you back in your life. My name is Rob Z, and I love bringing incredible guests on this platform who have had incredible breakthroughs in their lives. I like to dive in with a question right off the bat. So, Susan, thank you so much for being here. Is it Popoola?
Popoola.
Popoola. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I got it right off the bat. And I can't believe I didn't ask you that beforehand. I should have cleared that name with you. I want to ask you a question to dive in. Before we even talk about who you are and what you do, I want to know, what does it mean to create an impact with your life? And how do we leave a legacy?
So impact, I mean, we naturally have an impact, whether we intend it or not. Just by being on this earth and moving through, we're having an impact. But the key is to have a positive impact, to do things that have I mean, for me, profit is great. Profit is important, but it's also about how you have an impact on the people around you for positive, and how you have an impact on planet. So key with that is really and truly knowing who you are, knowing your purpose, or going on that journey towards purpose, and knowing what you want, and then taking steps to really make the most out of things.
Absolutely. And that leads to the legacy that you leave. And I want to ask you just more about legacy. But first, I just want to let people know who you are. So you are a human value optimization specialist with expertise in HR strategy and change. You work globally to help leaders create impactful, fulfilling work that honors every individual's value, reflected in her books and the Leading in a Mosaic World podcast. Susan, I want to thank you so much for being a part of this platform. I got to shout out the Connected Leaders Academy, who makes the Unstuck movement possible. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. And this podcast was created for you to have real proof in your life that if you persevere, you're bold, and you're committed with faith in your life, you're going to find those incredible breakthroughs that you're looking for in the things that you're going through. You know, and you're mentioning impact. When somebody asks me, like, what is impact? I always think of it like this. If I say the word leadership, somebody's name probably pops into your head. Somebody's face probably pops into your head. Or if I say comedy, or if I say joy, or if I say fear even, somebody's face, somebody's name probably pops into your head. That person has created an impact, whether good or bad, in your life. And I think of that like, I want to be somebody, and I'm sure you do also, Susan. I want to be somebody that somebody thinks of when they hear the word breakthrough. And I think for you, you probably want people to see you in their head when they think about the Mosaic World.
Yep, most definitely.
And with legacy, right? So what does it mean for you to leave a legacy on the world?
There's a saying, I can't remember where it comes from, but it says that we die twice. The first time when we physically leave this world, and the second time when there's nothing left for us to be remembered by. And that which we leave behind, that I would say hopefully resonates through the eons of time and is continually having an impact, hopefully a positive impact on family and others around in society, in the workplace, in the world around us, the environment we're in, the books that we write that have an impact, the podcast, how we engage with people that leave them better, that they continually talk about things and how we impacted their lives and how, as a result, they have been able to impact on others in a positive manner. All of those things, for me, amount to legacy.
Wow, I love that. That's really true. Like if you think of some people who left such a legacy and an impact on the world that there's buildings named after them or there's companies named after them, right? That's a legacy left But some of those legacies get tarnished over time or get a bad reputation over time. Other ones build people up and make things better over time. So how do we go about that on a daily basis, making sure we're leaving the right legacy? That's one of the hardest things to do, is to stay on the right track, right? To stay focused and stay committed to the things that we're doing and the things that we're growing. And especially in the modern world we're living in, the modern world, we get pulled in so many different directions. How do you stay focused on the legacy you want to leave?
For me, it's first and foremost, I mean, it stems from who I am. And I think that will apply to everyone. For me, it goes back to when I was small. And I was taught by my mum that everyone's important. Doesn't matter whether it's the person that is leading an organization or a person cleaning in the organization or what have you. It doesn't matter. Everyone has value. Everyone has importance. And that has resonated with me through the years. Consciously or subconsciously, I've carried that through with me. And in fact, you could, funny enough, say that that's part of my mum's legacy, because she's passed on a number of years back. But that impact that she's had with me, and so with everything I do, it's reflected. That's the impact that I'm trying to have when I talk about human value optimization. It's how do we value people? How do we ensure that we bring out the best in them, enable them to be their best, and we support them in being the best that they want to be, and we see the value that they bring as well. And so that permeates through. And for a long time for me, that was subconscious. I was just doing things. How do you value people? How do you bring out the best in them? How do you support people, guide people? How do I do my best as well and have an impact that is positive? Because what's the value of being in this world if you're just there and you're not having a positive impact? But in more recent years, I've become more conscious of what I do and how it affects people, and wanting to make sure that it has deep roots. So it's really just being able to take the time to reflect and see all the things I may have done, and what are the common themes? How do I bring all of those things together to create something? And what do I want to really focus in on and build, so that beyond when I'm here, those things remain?
Yeah, and that focus shifts and gets more defined over time, and you start to like whittle away the things that you thought once mattered, or you thought were really important, or you thought were the things you need to focus on, and you start to really hone in on the things that like reveal themselves as you work through the process of figuring this out for yourself. At least that's been my experience. I'm not speaking for you, I'm just speaking for myself. It's like it continues to reveal itself, the purpose, your impact, what you want to leave your legacy as time goes on. How has that shifted for you over the years? And before you answer that question, I just want to say this. When I was young, this is probably in my early 20s, actually, before I was not into personal development or anything about growing and becoming a better person, back when I thought that I couldn't change, I remember watching a video from Tony Robbins, and he said, if you want to be successful, or if you want to be happy and satisfied, you need to be of service to people. And I rolled my eye. I can remember watching it, rolling my eyes and being like, what is me helping somebody else going to do? Like, that was actually my mindset, that I didn't even understand that I needed to be of service to others. And the more you're of service to others, the better your life gets, because you're now outside of yourself helping other people grow, which helps you grow. And it's such a counterintuitive way to how the world teaches us things are. In a world of consumerism and of the I generation, everything's about you. It's amazing how my perspective has changed over the years. So how has yours changed over the years?
So I think I've always had that focus on other people. Talking about when I was young. When I was young, I wanted to write books. That's what I wanted to do for a living. There was, if you asked me, if you asked me why, I'd say there was this writer, this British writer named Enid Blyton, and she wrote books. They made me happy. I wanted to write because I wanted to make people happy. Now, when I told my parents that, they told me, you don't do that for a living, you can do it as a hobby. And it was put to aside for a long time, but now I do write. And my books, I've written 3 books so far. I'm working on my 4th book. My books become part of my legacy, and I'm now quite focused in that that there's a purpose to these books, because they're about impact, they're about understanding the world around you. And for leaders, as for others, you understand the world around you better, you engage better for the sake of self and others. So that's one thread. But even though I stopped, I didn't start writing books early on as I wanted to, there was still subconsciously that theme of, how do I have a positive impact on the life of people? And so while I was working professionally, starting off in the HR space and moving around organization to development leadership, I was always doing work with young people. So I was a youth worker. I was on the board of a school, business education, enterprises, and different things. And in more recent years, I became aware that with all the different young people that I supported, and I did young professional roundtables as well, I became aware of a group of people not often spoken about or understood. And those are young people who have been in the care system, or should I say, in other words, who have been in foster care. And people don't really talk about them, but they're very much present all around. And when you look at the experience that they have had of not being in their family home environment due to circumstances beyond their control, the displacement and the trauma that they're faced with based on due to the experiences that they've had, and then they get to the age of 18, or in some states in America it could be 25, but they reach adulthood, and largely they're on their own. And we're talking about formative years in a young person's life, where you're really working out who you are and what you want, and you're navigating. And actually, you need as much support as ever. With the typical young person, they reach the age of 18 and they're an adult, they can drive, but they still have all the support that they have. These young people don't have that for the most part. I am generalizing. And so I have, as you said, focused in on those specific young people and how do we support them, and develop the vision. And so this is part of what we're talking when we're talking about impact and legacy, because I've now got to the place where there's, through working in that space, in addition to the work that I do with organization and leadership, focusing in, then it's come to the place where, what is the need? What is the requirement? What is the vision? And that is that every young person who is care experienced knows that they're loved, cared for, and receive the support that they required in order to fulfill their purpose in life. It's that simple. It's not a big thing, but the key is you can't do that as an individual. And so it's the support structure and the people that you bring around to enable you to achieve that. And then I just add, and then the final bit is, so I know that that's, in addition to all the other smaller parts, that's key, central to my legacy. And then there's the work that I do with leaders, which is enabling them to ensure that they have a positive impact and a legacy of their own.
You know, you mentioned the foster care system, and you just touched me in a certain way there, because I think to myself, like, I've mentored lots of students, but I've never gone to that area of working with kids of the foster kids who, they don't get the encouragement they need. They're starting from a whole different a whole different starting point than most people. And like you said, they're kind of forgotten about, yet there's so many of them. And I think every year there's more and more.
Sadly.
It's, yeah, man.
And I always emphasize the point that they didn't create the circumstances.
Right.
And so for me, they are, I mean, every child, every young person should be loved, cared for, and treasured. But there's a special place, I believe we as a society, and I'm thinking globally, we have a responsibility to them. They are our children.
Yeah. So tell me specifically, how do you reach them? How do you work with them? How do you help them? Because I'm inspired right now to get off this podcast and make a couple phone calls to put myself in the right position to be working and helping some of them. How are you doing that?
So, I mean, at the very basic level, is recognizing them in their own humanity. So that's, should I say, a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few things. One is we've got what I call the Care Experience Village, which is a website where people can go to gain a better understanding of what care experience is. It's got a British slant to it, but it has global implications because wherever you are in the world, it's a similar experience of, because we've got some videos there which talk about why do young people go into care, what's the care experience typically like, and it will differ from one person to the other. Leaving care, after care experience, and the impact of care, plus other things. So we've got the village as a resource to help people to understand. So if people meet a young person that has been in care, then they're better able to engage with the person because they have a more insight and empathy to where the person has come from.
Mm-hmm.
We had a program that we were running before lockdown, which was really about helping them better understand who they are, what they want, take steps towards achieving it. We have a Christmas initiative, which is, you could say, very simple in that we have people writing letters to a care experience person at Christmas. Because if you think Christmas, it doesn't matter what your religious belief is or not, as the case may be, but come Christmas, we make so much noise about Christmas. It's time for family and it's time for friends. And then if you imagine you're a young person that doesn't have that support system around you, and you might be in living all by yourself or in a hostel. It's not the case with everyone. Some find themselves a happy family or relationship or what have you, and have friend networks that they can tap into. But a lot of them will be alone by themselves. And so we started this during lockdown with the recognition that we couldn't do anything face to face. And so we would meet. So we got people to write letters, and it's just really to say someone cares and someone's thinking about you. And the first year we wrote to around 25 young people. The next year around 48. Then it went to the 90s, and last Christmas it was 193. And so I've said this year we're looking at 400, not because we're specifically looking for 400 young people, but because the numbers have naturally grown year after year. And the initiative has grown as well to not, in addition to letters, people contributing, and we buy vouchers that they have, and with journals and a few other bits, just to say someone cares and someone's thinking about you. And then the final bit that we're working on, I say the final bit, there will always be additional bits, but if I think of the key areas, then the final bit is a learning app, which is something where they can go for information, knowledge, and understanding, which will ultimately be available to young people who are care experienced on a global basis. And so with that, I mean, Christmas, that special time, that's just a time to just directly reach out to young care experienced young people. And we do letters, but other people can do other things, as long as you have, you could invite someone to dinner, Christmas dinner, but you don't assume that the person will automatically want to come to dinner, because they might actually not want to. If they don't have a relationship with you already, they might not want to just come and stay or sit down around someone's table with a bunch of strangers. But there are different things. Their presence. There's just seeing a person saying, "How are you?" and just checking in on a person. So we've got that. As I said, we've got the learning app, which will enable them to engage and learn from different people, different experiences. And the village is really about people having a better insight and understanding of them. And then we'll do other things as they arise, as needs and opportunities arise. We'll do different things. There's a whole big vision, but that's just it in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. That's the vision you're talking about. You want to leave an impact. You want to leave a legacy. You have a massive vision. And oftentimes I think the vision has to be something that when you talk about it, I mean, obviously, listening to you talk about it, you get super excited. I can just see it in the way you speak about it, the way you look whenever you're talking about it. But that vision needs to be something so big that it's like, how are we even going to accomplish that, right? Because it needs to be that grand, because it's like shooting for the stars. And if you reach the moon, that's amazing, right? But having this like massive plan of like, how are we going to leave this gigantic impact and leave this legacy? Susan, that is so cool. So
Yeah.
we have to shout out.
I'm going to challenge that, if you don't mind, or say something different. It ultimately it will and become big, but it doesn't have to start there. It could just be something small. Because like with what I'm talking about, we were doing a little program and then we started writing to about 25 people. But as you do, you become more aware of the need or the potential of what you're doing, and you develop and grow it. Because, and I just say that just so that people don't think if they don't have a big idea, they can't do anything. So it's having something and starting somewhere with the seed, and then enabling it to germinate and grow into something beyond your imagination at times.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let that grow as big as it can. But it's going to start with that little seed. Yeah. And let it grow as big as you can imagine it growing. So we have to shout out to the Connected Leaders Academy, the podcast sponsor for 60 Seconds. When we come back, you refer to yourself as a human value optimization specialist. I want to know how we can increase our human value optimization of each of us individually, and what can that look like practically for our lives. We'll talk about that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So I'm always fascinated when somebody has a really cool title that I've never heard before. And I've never seen human value optimization specialist before, Susan, which is what you call yourself. What does that title mean to you, and how can we optimize our human value?
Very basically, it means I'm all about the value of people. As I said earlier, everyone has value. Everyone has something unique, special to offer for self and for others, for the sake of organizations, planet, people, what have you. Everyone brings something. And so the key is, how do we realize the value that people bring for community, in the community space, in education, in the workplace? And that's what it's about. And there are two key parts to that need to come to play for people's value to be fully optimized. One is that individuals need to recognize the value that they have to offer. And the second is that people around them need to appreciate the value that they bring and be able to leverage it. Because if you think of me as someone who is very capable, and you thought, gosh, I really like Susan. I want her to come and work in my organization, run a project. And you speak to me and say, Susan, look, I really think you're wonderful and I'd really like you to work with me. And I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm capable. I don't think I'm good enough. Or I come and I'm just not confident enough to put myself forward to do things. You're not going to achieve the results. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But if, on the other hand, I come up to you and I say I can do it, and I'm like part of your leadership team or working in your organization within whatever the role might be, and you and I say, and I'm putting myself forward and I'm saying I can do things, but you don't think I'm good enough, and so you say, well, actually, we'll get John to do that. Or, well, actually, there's someone else that can do it better, so we won't allow you to do it. Then, you're not going to get the best out of me. So for people's value to be optimized, then you need people to recognize the value that they bring and people around them to recognize the value that they offer. And the two combined with the structures and what have you enable people's value to be optimized. And that's what I'm really talking about. It's what I was talking about in more ways than not when I was talking about foster children. And it applies with organizations. It applies when we're talking about leaders having impact and leaving a legacy as well.
You know, I really believe so often people do not get enough encouragement. And especially when you're talking about foster kids, right? There's not enough encouragement. And I think, but across the board as a whole, growing up, we do not get the encouragement that we need to build. Sometimes people might have this inbuilt part of them that just like gives them that their own encouragement, right? But a lot of people need to hear that from somebody, usually a father figure, but the mother also, right? Somebody there who's very close to them, who is encouraging them to be more, to do more, and also showing them like that they're great just the way they are. Like, you're perfect the way you are, you're wonderful the way you're created, but always nudging them and pushing them. You can do it. You're stronger than you think you are. You're more capable than you think you are. You're more capable than you realize. And when you hear those sorts of things when you're younger, it builds this like sense of resiliency inside of you, this sense of truth inside of you. And if you don't get that when you're young, you have to like develop that for yourself. And that can be really hard for people to do. It can be really hard to instill that in yourself as you grow older. But if you want to be all that you can be, and if you want to have self-esteem and self-respect, you need to have those things for yourself, right? You need to have that encouragement, and we need to have that as something that is not just like it'd be nice to hear. No, it's a necessity. And so challenging people to do that on a daily basis, to encourage themselves and encourage others, and to truly mean it, and to spend time looking at people not as objects or what I can get out of somebody, but just really seeing them and encouraging them to go forward with whatever it is that they are meant to do or called to do, or help them to find that calling in their life. When you talk about the Mosaic concept, the Mosaic world, what does Mosaic mean to you? What does that term mean to you?
It's all connected. So if you think of everyone with their value and everyone different, we're all different, whether that's on the basis of our gender, the color of our skin, the way we think, what we do. We're all different. But if you think of us with all our differences coming together, and if you think of that in color and shapes, and you think of that creating a mosaic, think of a number of different mosaics within organizations, the world as a whole, in education, whatever space, just think of those different pieces coming together to create something beautiful. But the key is, so that's a mosaic, but the mosaic only works, it only sticks together with glue. And that glue are our common values, our common purpose, or even just a curiosity and interest in each other that brings us close together. And in the world that we're living in today, that is, I'll call it a traumatized world. that's the vision that I have for a mosaic world in which we come together in our rich diversity to create something beautiful.
Do you feel, you say it's a traumatized world, right? And it depends on the circle that you're in, because I talk to positive people all day long. I'm sure you do too. Like connecting with people that have a positive outlook and that have a great perspective, that we're moving in the right direction. How do you reach somebody who doesn't feel that way? How do you help to get through to somebody who doesn't see the world? They see the world in the more pessimistic view, or they see the world as falling apart instead of being built up. What are ways to get through to them, or to help them see, help them have a breakthrough so they can see things from a different perspective?
I mean, for me, it's starting from where they are, and it's recognizing their reality. Because as I said, I myself, I see the trauma, I see the pain, traumatized people. You see the conflict around us. You see the state of the planet. All of these different things, they are reality. But the key is, what do you do about it? And so for me, it's recognizing how people see the world, how they see their circumstances, their experiences, allow them to express how they feel and what they think. And then it's about working with them forward from there to see the positives within this negative circumstances that they may see, and to support them into developing a vision, their own purpose, their vision. What do you want to do? What do you want to work on? What do you want to be? That will get you up in the morning, that will get you excited. I mean, it's what we're saying, all the things we're saying, there's a connection. So if you find the area that is important to you, where you can do something, the small thing, I talk about leverage points. So you find a whole system where, or something that is wrong, and that you just find something small that you can do that makes a change, and that can have a big shift. So that is it for me. So accepting the reality of how people see the world, helping them to see the positives, and helping them to draw up a vision, a purpose, and move forward to create something positive, have a positive impact.
When you mention a leverage point, what does that leverage point, what could one of those look like? What does that mean?
So I'm just trying to think of one now as you ask.
Well, I am. That's when you said leverage point, I'm like, because that's it, right? That's the spot when you can really touch somebody, you can really affect somebody and make an impact because of that leverage point. And you usually have we all have a unique leverage point. We have to figure out what that is.
So I'll use an example in relation to my third book, which is Male Perspectives on the Value of Women at Work. And it's the challenges around women's progression in the workplace, and the fact that women are capable, just as capable as men, not more capable, but just capable in different ways. And we've been doing a lot of things to try and move things forward to enable women to have the opportunities that they want. And we haven't got that far, really. And so for me, looking around and seeing the problems and the challenges, it was a matter of, what do we do? What can we do to move things forward? And to me, the simple thing was actually talk to men, engage men, and get the support of men in moving things forward.
That's the leverage point.
That's the leverage point.
That leverage point is asking the men the question.
Asking men, because typically we as women will come from our perspective that this is our experience, which is totally valid and important. Probably look at men as advantaged and say, this is what we need from men and this is what they need to do. But for me, it's okay, actually, so we've been doing that, but what do men actually think? What do they feel? What's their experience? And how do we engage in them?
Oh, Susan, I love that, because that's leadership right there in a nutshell, right? That you're asking the questions that need to be asked to get an answer, get a true answer, not just a perspective answer. You're getting a mosaic answer,
Yep.
I guess you could say, right? Because you're building that mosaic of
it. That's you 100%, because it's all the component parts that come together, and just looking at things from the perspective of self, as important as that is, it only gets us so far. But it's when the other parts come to play that you really get the positive outcomes.
I'm writing this down right now, looking for a mosaic answer in things, right? Because if we, and this seems to be the general problem of our society, especially when it comes to the internet and the echo chambers we can end up in. We just talk to people who already agree with us about the things that we don't agree about, and we talk to somebody who doesn't agree also, and we just talk about why we don't agree and why doesn't the other person see it the way we see it, right? I mean, it's so obvious that that's the issue. We need to have these nuanced conversations, and we need to have the boldness, but also the respect and common sense, I think, is maybe the ultimate word here. The common sense to ask the people where the problem is, what the problem is. If we're going to go to, like you said, men in the workplace to find out what the issue is about women in the workplace, we're going to get a whole nother perspective, and we can bring those two worlds together. And because in the middle, the answer is always in the middle. I love that, because that's always seems to be so true. The answer is always not over here and not over here, but it's when you blend the concepts together and you find a common ground, the answers always lie in that place. That's really, really good. That just gave me a whole different perspective on, like, when you're, one of the core definitions for leadership is asking people great questions so that they can come to the conclusions for themselves. And that's what a great leader does. That's what you're talking about doing. And that's how we bring people together, invite them to be a part of the conversation.
And I would say enabling everyone to lead in their own space and in their own way. So I mentioned everyone's important, everyone's role is significant.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with organizations and leaders, I always talk about being clear for the sake of self about what the purpose is and what you're trying to achieve, but making sure that that is clear to everyone in the organization, and that everyone knows what their role is and how important it is, and that enabling them, giving them whatever they need to be able to fulfill their part within.
Absolutely. You just made me think of a conversation that I need to have with a guy that I talked with last week, and he's trying to grow his business. And I met with him for a couple of hours, and I saw some glaring things that I'm not working with him, but he was looking for my advice, and I didn't want to. I could tell him what's wrong, but I need to ask him what's wrong, and the people around him what's wrong, to come to the conclusion that he needs to come to. I can see what the problem is, and I can see the conclusion he needs to come to, at least in my mind, but I need to get his perspective on that, because his perspective is going to be a different perspective than I have. But there's a middle ground where the answer is.
And that's what's going to endure. Your input will be of value, but him coming to it himself. I've worked with organization leaders, and my approach was more, okay, I do transformation, and I would look and I would work out what needs to be done, and I'd support them in doing it, and then I would move on, and then I'd find that they've reverted to what they were doing before, because it didn't really have that buy-in at the top. And it was, okay, Susan said that this is what we need to do, and so we're doing it, as opposed to, yeah, this is what I really believe, and this is what I want, and I have ownership of it.
And I'm still working on that challenge myself. That's a lifelong mastery sort of thing, is helping somebody come to an answer that they own, not that you told them, right? And I think having kids plays a huge role in that. That's a constant challenge. Having kids is like getting them to come to a conclusion without me having to tell them what to do.
Yeah, and I
And
guess that is crucial because we're talking about foster children earlier. It's a life skill that they carry with them. That's what enables them to live independently because they're able to work out things for themselves. I mean, I think it's great that they can always come back home and ask questions. I always talk about my godson who went to university to college, but he'd speak to his mum on a daily basis. And a sounding board, someone to share with, so things don't become big and unmanageable. And so it's the same principle. You can have someone to talk to. I guess that's, we spoke about CSL. That's the key of having a coach, a mentor, or someone that generally supports you. They have the input, but you ultimately have leadership and ownership.
this has been a really inspiring conversation for me today. I've gotten a lot out of this, and I know people watching this and listening have also. It's been very motivational for me, and really, I love what you're doing. The mosaic concept of a mosaic world is such a cool way of saying it. I love the term mosaic, and I also love your title, the Human Value Optimization Specialist. We need more people like you in the world. So I just want to thank you, Susan, for coming on. Make sure everybody go to mosaicworld.live and check out what Susan is doing. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
First and foremost, thank you for listening. Anyone who wants to get in touch, I'm offering for people listening a free strategy session to help get them on track. So do feel free to get in touch.
Very cool. All right, Susan, thank you so much for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.